Okay, welcome to the next tutorial for Simple Harmony in beginning the papering and preparation of your box. The first step we're going to do today is paper over the edges of the interior sides of the lid and the bottom of the box. For this, I have chosen a beautiful Florentine print that I purchased from Hollanders in Michigan. A link will be in the description below. This isn't actually the original paper that I had chosen for my box. What I was thinking first was this different Florentine print, which is red, as you can see, as opposed to the very varied shades here. But when this came and I was looking at it, it struck me that these shades weren't necessarily harmonious with the true red of my interior, and that what I really liked was how the red popped against this print, which was what decided me towards this one. So if you're ever in doubt when you're working a project, always go back to your materials and look at them again, put them together and see how they interact and what you like best. So this is a very large sheet of paper. It measures 19 by 27. So getting everything I need out of this one sheet isn't really going to be an issue here, but I'm still going to show you how I would normally proceed, because making the most efficient use of your materials is just a very good habit to get into. So I'm going to use this to paper the edges of the box, but I am also going to use this to cover the bottom of the box once the embroidery has been applied. The bottom of the box is the single largest piece that needs to come out of this sheet. So I measured that out and cut this first, because you always want to cut the biggest piece you need out of your sheet first, and then that allows you to more efficiently cut the remaining paper. So this is the piece for the bottom of the box, which I am going to set aside. That goes on after the embroidery in this instance, because the sides are going to roll over onto the bottom of the box, and then you will cover those edges with the paper. Again, always think about order of operations, what goes over something else, what goes under, and that will allow you to get the neatest finish. So always be thinking about that. Now that I've cut the bottom of my box out of this sheet, I can cut the other things I need for it out of it, which are the strips for the edges of the box. As you can see, I've pre-cut a couple here just because that's really boring to watch. I'm still going to show you what I do. So I've decided on a 1-inch strip, although I won't need the entire thing because this box is made of relatively thick wood, as you can see. And that will give me plenty of room to play with. So I am going to mark off and then cut 1-inch strips. As you can see, I didn't really do a very neat job there. So I'm gonna have to deal with that. So I've got my ruler and a pencil lined up. Oh, great. Where's the lead? And I'm marking off 1-inch long strips. As you can see, this ruler isn't actually long enough to go all the way across, but that's fine. I don't use this to cut because this is a plastic ruler and you want a metal edge when you're using an X-Acto knife. I'm gonna cut in this direction. So I've marked what I need, and then I'm taking a metal edge ruler, and then I'm actually going to cut my strips. I'm laying that, and I'm taking my X-Acto knife. You could also just cut these with scissors, but for a long straight cut, I find an X-Acto knife to be much easier, and I am holding down my ruler so that it doesn't shift on me, which can happen. You can also buy corked backed rulers, which will be a little easier to work with. I just like the convenience of my long L-shaped metal ruler. And then I am going to cut my second piece. I always like to cut extra strips just in case I mess up when I'm gluing, which is, experienced as I am with boxes, does still occasionally happen. No matter how many times you say, measure twice, cut once, you can still get ahead of yourself and these things can become problems. So I like to have extra just to deal with that. Now I have cut my paper strips and we will move on to gluing. Okay, so now I'm going to take a second to explain the different types of glue that are used in making and preparing embroidered boxes. Also, as you can see, I've changed my background a little bit. This is a silicone craft mat, which I like to use for gluing over wax paper because not only is it reusable, the silicone has a little bit of grab to it, and so your paper is less likely to shift around on you as you're applying the glue, which is really helpful because that's paper shifting on you can mean that glue gets on the front of your paper, or even worse, on your embroidery. And so I really like the more grabby nature of the silicone, and that's why I use the mat over waxed paper. When I am doing a larger box for myself, I will usually use 3 kinds of glue. For this project, for the sake of simplicity, I am only going to use 2, which is acid-free Yes Paste and Jade 403 PVA, which is an archival grade, essentially tacky glue. Acid-free, totally safe for all things textiles. But if I were doing this project for myself, I would also be using wheat paste. This is the wheat paste sold by Thistle Threads, to which calcium carbonate has been added to make it completely pH neutral. The downside of wheat paste, well, there are many downsides. It has to be mixed. As you can see, this is powder. Has to be mixed with water, then strained, and it doesn't last very long. The water and the wheat paste starts separating after about an hour, so you really only ever want to mix up just what you need for the specific gluing task that you're doing. I do like it for gluing paper because it just saturates the paper and makes it very easy to handle when you're doing something like applying, especially the edges, to a box. However, it does not have enough grab, in my opinion, to ever work with fabric, and that's where I would always use Yes Paste. Since this project involves fabric, I've decided to simplify it, and we are only going to use Yes Paste here. The other difference here is that wheat paste is quite thin. You would apply it with a brush. Yes Paste, on the other hand, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Paste doesn't really capture it. It is incredibly viscous. It is this just, yeah, it's sticky. And that's why instead of a brush, I use these little plastic spatulas, which I got on Amazon. Unfortunately, these exact ones aren't still available. It was a set of different sizes. They work really well. But just search plastic craft spatulas on Amazon and you can get something that will work for you. So we will be using Yes Paste, a silicone craft mat, and plastic spatulas today for our gluing, along with a pair of scissors, a ruler, ruler and a pencil to cut everything to the necessary size. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to dry fit my pieces. When I'm doing edges, I like to do long side first and then short side. So I am marking where I'm going to cut with a fold, and then I am cutting the paper to fit to the long side. Let's see, is that going to be long enough? No. So I'm going to set that aside for the short side. I'm going to take a second long strip and cut another, same size. And because I have 4 long edges between the bottom and the top, I am cutting 4 long strips of equal size to use here. And then setting aside the shorter pieces from that long strip to use on the short sides of every box edge. Every box, like how many boxes am I doing here? Sorry guys. Okay, so I now have 4 long strips cut exactly to size, and then 4 shorter strips, which I'm going to set to the side, and then I will cut down when I get to that point. So in dry fitting, this goes to the outside edge, and obviously you can't bend this all the way down, so I'm going to clip this. And then I'm going to bend this down so I can get an idea of how this fits. That's good. And then I am going to cut off these extra parts of the strip to form kind of a T shape. So what I'm going to do when I get to the short sides is I'm going to miter the corners. This little T here provides a place for the miter to overlap, so you get a really neat edge. You don't have to do this. It's just a small detail that is easy and I find really elevates your finish. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all 4 strips like I did this one. Okay, all 4 long side strips have been cut and prepared, and now I am going to start the gluing. I'm taking one of my craft spatulas. I'm going to grab some glue out of my yes paste, and I'm just going to smooth it over. So you want your glue applied in a nice even layer across the whole thing, not too thick. If you've really globbed it on, you can just go over it at a 45-degree angle and kind of just scrape off any extra. So I've got an even layer of glue applied over the whole thing, and I'm going to line this up on the box, meeting all the edges, making sure that this is flush with my outside edge. And then I am going to carefully, so that it doesn't shift, bend this down. I'm going to keep pressing down with my fingers. make sure that the glue takes. I've got a nice neat edge here. So that is one glued long side edge. As you can see, it's coming up a little bit here. So I'm gonna keep pressing that down. So your paper, let's see, will roll down into your edge here. And then just press as necessary with your fingers to make sure that it's smooth on the top and on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all four long side edges into the top and the bottom of the box in the manner that I've just shown you. Okay, I now have the long side strips glued in on the edge of both top and bottom, and then I am going to put in the short side strips. So I'm going to move the bottom out of the way and work again on the lid. As you might be able to see, I have a little bit of messy glue on my silicone mat. The way I deal with this is I just let the yes paste dry, and then I peel it right off and then give the silicone mat a quick wash before I glue again. So I've got the lid, and now I have my side strips, which I am going to cut 2 sides. Yep. And as you might be able to see, I've got some of my gluing coming up a little bit. If you just see that, press it down, and then as it dries, store it face down to give a little weight to it. So I'm going to now cut all 4 side strips to size. Okay, now I have 4 short strips, and the last thing I need to do before preparing to glue these is to cut them down to miter the corners here. So I'm going to position everything, and then I'm going to cut into it like I did with the long strip, right up to where the width of the side of the box. But instead of a T, I'm going to cut a little mitered corner edge there. I'm gonna check the fit. Which is good. And I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so these have mitered corners at both ends. I have dry fitted it to make sure that these fit well, which it does. Fold, ready for gluing, and then I'm going to repeat this for all 4 strips. Okay, I now have mitered short side strips for all 4 short edges, and I am going to glue them in in the same way that I did the long side strips. So I'm just gonna take a glob of my Yes paste on my spatula and smooth it out, applying more as necessary. Make sure you really get those little triangular corners because those are the hardest to stick down. And then I am going to apply them to my box. Giving a nice, neat cornered edge, which I will now repeat for all 4 sides. So I have completed the papering of the short side, which gives me fully papered edges for both the lid and the bottom of the box. I can see a couple places where it's coming up a little bit. So I'm just going to smooth those down again, and then I am going to store these pieces face down so that they dry smoothly, and I will let these dry, and then we will come back for part 2, exterior papering, which, looking on the timestamp on these, I'm going to put in another video. So that's this tutorial, and then come back soon for the exterior papering, which is the next stage in preparing your box.